2, 1.
Good morning, everyone. I don't know
Happy
about y'all,
Thursday.
but I'm dragging this morning after staying up all night last night trying to put together my latest newsletter. So hopefully you guys slept better than
I was up 13 hours today. Now I know it. I got up and I couldn't go back. I was like, I'm just going to get up and work out. I felt like I had Dan's spirit in me.
Yeah, when you responded at 5:15, 5:30, I was like, all right, happy Thursday.
I know.
early
And I
for
literally
Sean.
thought to myself, I'm actually going to get on the text chain now just because I want to know what it's like to be Dan. I will say this. I did get outside and there wasn't a lot of natural light, but my sort of try to not look at a screen for a half hour was busted a little early this morning because I wanted to prove that I could get up early like you.
Yeah, guys, Dan wakes up at like 4. Dan, do you get up at 4? Is that, do you do it naturally or is there an alarm?
4:30.
Nope. I get up at 4:30 and have a quadruple espresso and we're ready to
go.
No,
that's okay. So let me just, you need to do a little grounding, get your circadian rhythm to kick in. No coffee for a while. I mean, I can help with this.
No, within 5 minutes.
You know what? I'm a little bummed. I thought I got the kind folks at Roebuck sent me a brand new, you can't really see it. It's I'm getting ready for Army Navy, and it's this amazing Naval Academy shirt. I thought it would come across on camera a lot better, but no.
I was going to say prints are always tough on camera.
I know, but it's the Naval Academy N with the star and then a ship under. It's a really cool design if you could see it.
I'm sure it looks great in person.
But it's going to be 40 degrees. It's going to be 40 degrees at the game, so there's no short sleeve polos going down.
Oh, please. There'll be a cadet or midshipman with no shirts on.
That's after we win.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Got
it. There you go. A little bit of smack talk this morning. Okay, let's first look at the agenda here. No, I'm sorry, the Daybook, and then we'll talk about what we're going to discuss on the show. The president has a signing ceremony today at 4:45. That's going to be
AI regulation. Yeah, it's a big one.
Say that again, Dan.
It's going to be on an AI framework to try to overrule states that are starting to do this. States, including some red ones, agree with this.
Yeah, I don't know. By the way, you know the funny thing is, and this just shows my age. Back in the early in 94, 95, we did the same thing with the internet. Senator George Allen and a bunch of others led this effort to basically say the internet's in its infancy. We don't want to tax it. We don't want to do anything. We want to allow it to sort of come to fruition. And I feel like we're having the same discussion all over again with AI 30 years later.
Yep.
Yeah. But it of course splits both parties. I mean, this doesn't follow along party lines. So it's an interesting debate to watch. I'm sure we'll talk more about it at some point in future programs. At 8:15, the president is going to be giving remarks to the congressional ball. Sean, is this where all the members go to the White House?
So he's doing it in the cross hall. Yeah, they all go. This is their chance to get dressed up and to go see all the decorations. It's generally a bipartisan thing because everyone loves to go see the trees and the ornaments and the gingerbread house, etc. I'll be interested to see how many Dem members go, but
no, there would be blowback from the base if they went.
I think you get a really good
question, actually.
I disagree about that.
Yeah, I think you can go to Christmas stuff. So
maybe. At 1 p.m., Caroline Leavitt is going to be briefing the press, and it sounds like Kristi Noem is on Capitol Hill to testify at 10 a.m. That'll be interesting to watch, given all the rumors surrounding, her and whether she will stay or go. And then in Indiana today, the Senate is expected to vote on the state's new congressional map. So big moment for the GOP, as Punchbowl wrote this morning in the 2020.
I'll tell you, that's going to be a big one. The House already passed it. Everybody, the president was truthing about this last night. The Indiana Senate is 40-10, Republican to Democrat. In any normal circumstance, this should be a no-brainer. But you've got some recalcitrant Senate Republicans the president has named and shamed. If despite the numbers, the conventional wisdom, it wasn't going to pass. Speaker Johnson's been jumping in, making phone calls personally. The president teams has been very involved. I know Dan and I were talking offline that Turning Point's been trying to pressure some folks too. Look, if this thing passes, this will be a big deal. This will be a net 2 gain for the Republicans.
Yeah.
And they need good news. I mean, this should be the first piece of good political news they've had in a little bit.
So we're going to talk about a number of, we have a ton of news to get through, guys. We're going to move quickly. Venezuela, of course, the oil tanker seizure. The Fed decision yesterday, but Jerome Powell made, taking shots at the president yesterday. Cabinet shakeup, rumor mill, topic that I am most excited to get into because I wrote about it this morning. The Capitol having cracks in the chaos up there on the Hill, nothing new. MAGA Online's army turning inward and what that means for 2026. Harris has extended her book tour. We'll talk about that, as well as some other headlines we're seeing on the Democratic side of things regarding the Civil War in the Democratic Party. Yep. But let's just start with forcibly seized a Venezuelan oil tanker. Now, this obviously is a significant escalation in this feud with Maduro. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, released video of it. You can actually go watch it. The guy sort of like.
By the way, did anyone pick up on that? So here's the deal: the DHS, i.e., the Coast Guard, executed a DOJ warrant with Department of War assets, i.e., the Navy, and it was the Attorney General that released the video, which.
Because technically it was, they were seizing Iranian oil, or the allegation is it was
sanctioned the oil. Yeah.
Yes, it was being shipped to Asia to sell to Iran. So it was a Justice Department, but we'll get to this because that's part of the question.
But to answer, did you guys think it was weird? I thought, and again, this is where my brain goes, but the idea that the video was released by DOJ, the Attorney General, not Coast Guard or DHS, not SecWar or the Navy.
The whole thing is, yeah. I mean,
what's your theory, Sean? Clearly, you have one.
I mean, my it's not even a theory. The only thing, because again, it didn't make sense. It was like, I get they're executing your warrant, but did they just want to jump in the spotlight and get part of? I mean, I don't know, and that's why I was just sort of like, this doesn't. Something, when the dots don't connect the way they're supposed to, that's when you go, what's going on here?
Well, but I mean, there's two parts to this, which is one, what are we doing down there? I wrote a Substack about this yesterday. I guess timing turned out to be perfect. Like, we have 15,000 troops in Puerto Rico. We have the largest aircraft carrier strike groups, reconnaissance planes, attack planes, drone armies, everything. By all accounts, it is down there to get ready to go in some form to attack Venezuela. There has been no public dialogue about why we're doing this, what our goals are, the risks of it. And Sean, to me, like, what's so fascinating about this tanker yesterday is, one, technically it was not kind of a military action on Venezuela. As you say, it's a DOJ. It's not serious when you're releasing videos my first thought was, oh my God, this is like when they do the immigration raids and, Kash Patel's got the FBI vest on and Kristi Noem's got the DHS, jacket on, and they look like they're out of
and a gun.
Yeah, they look like they're out of a cops video, and it is more made for social media than like the real world here. So,
but Sean, isn't that what President Trump wants? Like, he wants to brag about this stuff.
But what are we doing? Again,
well, there's two issues.
Serious question. Yeah, exactly.
Right. There's the video piece of it, the visual piece. And I think part of this is, especially after 4 years of Biden, the cabinet members want people to know I'm on the job. I'm getting it done. I'm handling the priorities that the president campaigned on. So that part I get, right? If you don't tell people you're doing it, I mean, we talked about this with the economy, then you don't get credit for it. So I give the administration credit for making sure the American people see what they're doing and the results that they're getting. Then it goes to what Dan's asking. Okay, are we selling the broader narrative, the why? Why are we down there? Is it drug interdiction? Is it for a geopolitical purpose to sort of put a counter to Russia and China's influence in our sort of southern hemisphere? I think that part, the result part is definitely, A+. The boat's getting striked. We're out there doing this. This is what's happening. The issue that Dan brought up does need some work. They need to start getting out there and explaining the why a little bit more.
Yeah, because for a long time when we talked about the strikes on the boats, it was all about, drugs and, making sure that illegal drugs weren't coming to the United States and killing people, right? This is a totally different thing. And it feels like they need to sort of just connect the dots with the messaging there. I mean,
well, and by the way, though, but Sean, because you said the video is great. This is the problem with the video of the boat strike is when you start putting videos out of military action, and this basically was military action. Like, okay, you want to brag about the videos of what looks good, right? The flexing, the like, we got the guy, so to speak. Well, now show us where there was a problem, because you obviously have videos. And so I think the challenge is, let's say they did this and there was, weather and the helicopter crashed and soldiers died. Like, now you're raising the expectation that every time we take military action, there are lots of videos.
On Capitol Hill,
well, I mean, but that's the risk. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
that you don't have to. I mean, I get it, but that's a managed risk.
I think you're going to hear
related
more
note
from
on
Dennis
this.
Yep.
On Capitol Hill, there are growing calls for a war powers vote, which, as a longtime former Hill reporter, I almost just chuckle at this, because like lawmakers talk about asserting their Article 1 power on these sorts of issues all the time, and then they never do. Regardless, the resolution sort of calling for the authorization of these strikes to come to both chambers. Those will be coming to the floor next week. This is going to put pressure on the administration to do exactly what you're talking about, Sean, which is make the case for what they're doing and sort of justify what they're doing. I mean, like, why not just go to the Hill, tell lawmakers everything, and then you can sort of lean on them as well to make this public case about why what is happening in the Caribbean is important, why it matters to Americans.
I think because the Republicans are split. They don't.
That might have something to do with it, but yeah, I mean, there's an element of they've got to that gets to the point that I made. They've got to go out there and sell the why a little bit better, because this is an issue. I brought this up before. Immigration and foreign intervention are the two areas where you've got real MAGA kryptonite. You start going out there and screwing with those two things, and that's the one thing that unites everyone on in the MAGA world.
Against it. Yeah. They
right,
would be
right.
united.
So yeah.
I mean,
yes.
that to me, and I've said this on the drug votes, I don't know why the Democratic Party doesn't lean into this, because you have another issue to completely fracture MAGA. Get off the boat conversation and get on to this bigger issue of why do we have so many assets down there? And are we really about to launch a war in the jungles of Venezuela? What is our national objective? It would completely split Republicans.
Yeah, we'll see.
But I don't entirely disagree with you, Dan, but I also go, I mean, look, I've been doing this 30 years. There's very few foreign policy intervention issues that get people motivated and or off the sidelines. So you to spend effort on that would be complete to me. If honestly, for all the time, instead of focusing on the economy, you guys want to talk about boats in Venezuela, go for it.
Let's talk about. Well, he's right. He's right. By the way, I mean, people just don't care about foreign policy, and if
they do unless it's their kid down there. I mean,
that's fair. That's fair. That's totally fair.
Right. But you know what I'm saying? You got like, if I were a Democrat right now, take the advice that you're giving everyone else, would just stay focused on the economy.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Fed decision, specifically the aftermath of yesterday's Fed decision. Jerome Powell is having this sort of YOLO moment, and for those of you who are boomers and old, like my co-host, just kidding, guys. I love you.
Oh, I know
that means you only live once. And on the way out the door, he's very much sort of flipping the bird at President Trump. He, after announcing that they were going to reduce the rates by 0.25 percentage point, he made news by saying tariffs are causing inflation and suggested that the job numbers may be rigged, which is, Dan pointed out on our text chain, it's totally stunning to have leader of the Fed like this. Dan, how much are everyday voters sort of following this, and how much do you think it factors into the midterms?
I mean, I think there's two things. I think, and we've talked about this here for a while. Democrats have treaded on tariffs lightly. I mean, you had, if you go back to Liberation Day, Elizabeth Warren and others saying, well, I don't like how Trump is doing this in terms of the blanket, like across the board, but tariffs as a tool are good. And there's a, argument to be made, for them in some instances. So we were pretty divided. Today, I think more and more Democrats are getting comfortable saying these tariffs are really hurting the economy. And I think the Federal Reserve chair saying, and the data completely backs this up, that inflation has begun to reaccelerate right around the time when the tariffs came on, and that the tariffs are a huge cause of it. You're going to hear Democrats saying, like, it's a validation point, right? Hey, he's saying it, the Federal Reserve chair, in addition to business people. The other big statement yesterday was Trump in his presser when he was speaking before the press made the comment when a reporter said, look, you want an even bigger rate cut, that might cause inflation to take off. It's not an issue.
Was that the direct quote?
I believe it's either inflation is not an issue or inflation is not active anymore. He said something like that. And I know because text lit up from Democrats on Capitol Hill. If inflation picks up, you will see that in ads, right? This is the A++. This is it's a hoax. And now it's like, no, that's not the real issue. I want them cutting rates. So to me, this like aftermath of people putting their, foot in their mouth is a big deal. And
Sean,
it boxes in Republicans.
I want to go back to what Rachel said initially, though, on Powell. There's one way of looking at that, the YOLO, you only live once. And then there's, the idea that a Fed chair went out there and sort of made a guy like Jerome Powell, who's a much more sort of reserved institutionalist, that said, maybe the job numbers are being cooked. Like, I was like, whoa, dude, like that was like, you know what? I know that said to me, I'm getting fired and I know it. You're getting rid of me and I know it. And I don't care anymore. I mean, but for someone like him, that's what I thought.
Well, and he put a number. He said 60,000 per month is what they think may be off. I mean, that was tangible. That was like,
but it's not just that. But what I'm getting at, Dan, is I think for a guy like that normally would hesitate to say something that wasn't baked in like data to say, for him to be out there speculating in a negative way, to me was like, whoa, that does not come out of that guy's mouth. And to me, that signaled him saying, I'm out, I'm a goner, and I know it. And
you think Trump fires him now? I mean, you think Trump says like, you're out of line and that's it?
No. But I think what it said to me was, I know you're probably going to fire me and I don't care anymore. And I'm going to make it clear that I don't like you and you don't like me. And therefore, I believe that in January or February, when Powell tries to resist another rate cut or whatever, then Trump does fire him. Between now, December 10th, 11th, and May, when he is leaves anyway because his term ends, he will be fired.
What's the % chance of that, Sean?
100%? That he will be fired?
Yeah.
Assuming the court grants him the power with Lisa Cook, 100%.
Clip it.
I mean, he's literally, because before what I've always maintained that every time he cuts rates, he buys himself some time. And Trump goes, okay, let's see what you do the next time. And so he keeps buying himself time. When Powell said what he did publicly yesterday, that was, hey, I may not even come in anymore. Like, just send the check to my home. Like he's done and he knows it.
All right, let's move on to the next topic that I'm excited to talk about, this sort of cabinet shakeup rumor mill that everybody here in Washington is talking about. I wrote about this in my newsletter this morning, The Inner Circle, which is on Substack. You guys should all go subscribe right now if you haven't yet. It's free.
At where?
At RachelBade.com and an extra A, RACHAEL. My name is spelled wrong. I don't know why. So the top line, let me just start there. The top line of my newsletter is basically that despite like everybody suggesting there's going to be all these firings at the end of the year and this sort of year-end cleaning up or cleaning house, the reality is I'm being told no one's going to get fired. Not Christie, no, not Kash Patel, not Pete Hegseth, not this month, not next month. There's no plans for this. But we should underscore that the cabinet has sort of been put on notice. They've been given a warning. There is this sort of feeling in the West Wing that a new dynamic is starting to rear its head, and that, a lot of these cabinet secretaries, they're sort of asserting their independence, freelancing a little bit, and that this could be a problem for the party next year as they sort of enter the midterms, as the president has had, he's been sluggish in the polls lately, and that they need to button it up. No freelancing, make sure you run everything by the West Wing. This has been sort of, this has been told to cabinet leaders and their staff as well. In the meantime, though, I can report that the president is actually mocking a lot of this reporting about him firing people in the next few weeks. He made a joke the other day when he was meeting with Secretary of State Rubio, and everybody just started laughing. And there's this belief that a lot of this stuff is coming from people who don't like other people, trying to knife each other in Trump world, which again, Sean, you worked there, is nothing new. And we can talk about individual cabinet secretaries. I mean, in the newsletter, I have little bits and pieces about how, Kristi Noem might not be going anywhere because the president, he does love her. He loves that she's on TV and that she's on, going to liberal media and defending him. But there are conflicts, right? Like he's asking about all these ads that she's starring in that are running around the country. How much money is being spent on them? He's asking people what they think about her. So even though no one's getting ousted, there's definitely tension. And again, there's just this new dynamic to watch as we go into the new year, where the cabinet secretaries are going to be on a shorter leash because they just don't have the time to deal with drama right now.
Yeah, but so let me just, Trump asked about everybody. So if you were doing an interview with him, he'd say, what do you think of Rachael Bade? How do you think? And he'd ask everybody. And the way
it was indicated to me, Sean, was that it's not necessarily a good thing, and that he's asking, "What do you think of these ads? How much?"
No, right. No, but that's where I'm just let me keep going for a second. So what happens is this: he starts with a simple question. He asks everybody the same thing. Like I've talked to him about several staffers. As long as he's getting positive feedback, that's great, right? So you say, "Oh, Dan, he's been doing great, sir. You see the ads that he's doing, and boy, he's crushing it on your agenda." Da da da. What happens is when that dynamic starts to shift and he starts hearing more negative about you than less. And when, to your point, somebody happens to drop a negative article on his desk that he reads, or, hey, I printed out this truth for you that somebody said that so-and-so is doing a horrible job. I just wanted you to see it. And then the questions become, hey, are you hearing a lot of negative? I mean, so his inquisitive nature is just something that he does all the time about everybody. But when that narrative shifts, and you go over the hump, it's hard to get back. So where these cabinet secretaries have to be careful, you saw that one of the anecdotes that you had and a couple other people have reported different ones where when he brings these up, other staff will say, oh, Pete, he's doing great, sir. He's awesome. I see him out there all the time. When that shifts and when the knives come out for you and they go, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of crappy stuff too about Bob or Dick or Harry, then you're screwed. And that's what you have to be careful of. I'm very well of this personally too, is when you can't hold the dam back anymore. And what happens is when you start hearing these rumblings, you'll get people that you'll say, hey, Dan, when you go in the Oval tomorrow, can you do me a huge favor? Can you just say, hey, by the way, I'm hearing Sean's doing a great job. When people stop doing that, in fact, going the other way, and they're saying, wow, I heard Sean's screwing up a bunch and, gosh, you've gotten a bunch of stories. Did you see that thing in the Post? Did you see how Politico said that? You're screwed. And then the question is, how much time do you have left? And what I got out of Rachel's reporting newsletter is that no one's at that point yet, but you don't want to get talked about that much because unless it's positive, I think Marco Rubio is in a pretty good place. You can tell, right? There's a bunch of staff that gets good stuff. But when you're getting a 50-50 balls, you've got to be careful that the staff doesn't turn on you too much. And you suddenly become when they're asked about you, they're not saying anything nice or defending you.
And the president, he's shown an aversion to firing people, right, Sean? For somebody who was, you're fired on The Apprentice all the time.
Well,
he doesn't want to, I remember hearing this notion of, I don't want to give the media a scalp. And that was the first time we heard that.
I think what he learned from last time is there's a difference. And this is sort of to me the big existential. I've been working on this question from a bigger issue later. Why is this term different? And one of the things that's different is last time when he would hear stories, he think about Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State. He had no relationship with Rex Tillerson. He had no relationship with Jim Mattis. I was with him the first time he met Jim Mattis. The second time he met Jim Mattis, we flew down to North Carolina on December 5th, 2015. And so 2016, he didn't know these people. So then he'd start to hear stuff. Did you hear that so-and-so isn't pushing your agenda? Did you hear they talk crap about you behind your back? The difference now, This cabinet has a level of familiarity with him and he with them that we didn't have in the first term. They get him, he gets them, they get the agenda, and they're there to execute. We had a ton of people that stood in the way of his agenda or just outright stopped it because they didn't believe in it. That's a different notion. So when you talk about giving a scalp, last time he'd be like, great, get rid of so-and-so. They're not on the team. This time, these are his people. He knows that they are disruptors that are getting the job done. Right. So there's a little bit more of, I don't want the media to win.
Well, and Sean, talk about the dynamic too, or both of you, of Susie, because the campaign was pretty drama-free. They had that just a little bit there. But what about her role and her relationship with the president?
Well, it goes back to what I just said about the cabinet, right? I mean, you think about myself included, the number of people, we knew him, but I wasn't his best friend. I didn't have a year. I mean, I had met him a bunch. We had gotten to know each other over the course of 18 months during the campaign. And we got along great, and we still do. But I mean, some of these people, you look at Hegseth, Pete's known the president 15 years. Pam Bondi's known him 20. Yep. I mean, you go and talk about these people and the relationship that they have with him. It didn't just happen. And so Susie, she's been in his orbit since the 2016 campaign. She was a key Florida player, right? She stayed loyal to him when very few people did. She was one of clearly the architect and the lead behind not just 2020. She came back in 2020. She was obviously played a massive role in 2024 and a successful role in 2024. Yep. And so she knows his ups and downs, when to put her foot on the gas, when to put it on the brake, when to walk out of the room. She probably has the most degree of familiarity of anybody. She knows what he wants, what he doesn't, when to sort of, and how to, right? How to sort of interject herself, when to tell a cabinet meeting. And the thing is, it's not just that, but every single person in that cabinet knows where she sits in that orbit, and you're not going to screw with her.
Yeah. She's going to be walking this, tightrope though next year between, cabinet secretaries, like I said, asserting themselves and freelancing. If they end up doing that, Sean,
like one of the big takeaways that I learned, and then I tried to then impart on others during the first term, is you will never beat family. So all of these nut jobs that sort of were like, I'm going to push Jared out, I'm going to do this. I'm like, yeah, right. Okay. The dude is married to her daughter. He has a great relationship. That's the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. We don't have family in this administration like we did the last time. You've got Susie. And if I were a cabinet member, the last person I would tangle with is her.
Yeah, no doubt. Two quick things on this, and then we'll move on. Dan, who's the cabinet secretary that gives Democrats the most ammunition, would you say?
Oh, I'm trying to think of this as politically
And who do they like? I'm curious.
Well, who do they like and who gives them the most ammunition are two different topics.
The two opposites. Yes.
Yeah, I think trying to think of who the cabinet secretary is that they like. I mean, the ones who aren't in the news tend to be, they're not in the news because their heads are down and they're doing their job and they're kind of working in a bipartisan basis. Yeah. I think the one that gives them the most ammunition right now might be Kash Patel, because the stories are things that voters don't like. And even though you could argue why the girlfriend should have protection and why he has to have private planes and why, that's the type of stuff that when you bring up, people are just like, I don't like it.
Sean, who's going to be the first one, do you think, to leave?
Oh, I'll tell you this. The funny thing about the question you asked Dan is there's very different dynamics between who Democrats, I think, like, who industry likes. Yeah. But I'll tell you, because each of them plays a different role. I think the thing that's interesting that I've heard from Democrats is they like Sean Duffy one of the best. And the reason is, and Buttigieg, I think, as much as I have a lot of issues how Buttigieg did his job, it was very similar because Dan kind of touched on this, but like transportation, roads, highways, seaways, airports, touch members. They deal with them. They hear about all sorts of truck traffic. I mean, when I worked for a New Jersey member, truck traffic was the number one issue. And so Duffy's really good. When I talk to some of the senators, they'll say, that's Sean Duffy. He gave me his cell phone. He's always reachable. He's accessible. He's communicating. that's a department that if you're a member of Congress or a senator that is in your wheelhouse, your constituents are calling you about the port in LA, the port of Baltimore, whatever, the roadway, the highway trust fund, et cetera. And so I hear positive things about Duffy, but again, it's because he is a former member of Congress. He understands constituent services, and those are his constituents. The folks on the EPW committee on the Senate side, I would argue probably on a bipartisan basis, would give him high marks. I think if you think about the news recently, I got to say, I mean, maybe Kash Patel, but I kind of differ with Dan. I don't think most constituents are complaining about the FBI director. I think maybe with all of the news, they, Hegseth a little. I'm just going through the department in my head.
I mean, that's the thing. Most Americans don't really pay attention to the
right.
cabinet.
I mean, it's
all
not
about number one.
Yeah, you're not, and that's why I was saying Duffy's probably the only one where they're actually interacting on like my constituent wants this road, this seaway, this port, etc.
But Duffy has actually, as I write in the newsletter this morning, there's been a couple issues with him in the White House.
Right. And that's why I said I separated it,
yeah.
Right. And there's a separation between what does industry think?
Right.
What does the internal staff think? Right. And then what does the president think? And then what do members of Congress think? And those are all separate buckets because you can do really well with one group and not well with the other.
Totally
right.
agree.
Last question on this, since we're talking about secretaries, Howard Lutnick today, I believe, or maybe it was yesterday, rolling out the $1 million gold Visa card. Sean, good or bad idea?
Look, what did I say a few minutes ago? And what have I said for months? Immigration and land wars are two tripwires. This gold card, I don't get it. We have programs that, let me just say this. We have programs that bring investment and jobs to America. Okay. And then we've got programs that have divided MAGA, HB1. Last year, I tweeted out right a month in this ballpark, like it was closer to January, between Bannon and Elon on H-1B, probably the biggest level of engagement I've ever had in a tweet in my life. The H-1B visa struck a chord with MAGA because it was there's a belief that it's just a total fraud giveaway that takes U.S. jobs. And here we are announcing a program that for $1 million, you can buy your way into America with nothing. You're not, at least with H-1B, the proponents of it would argue you're getting somebody who's really smart in theory coming into America and potentially creating, technology here or something. With this gold card, you're basically stroking a check. What is America getting? And I think that this could become a MAGA tripwire, an issue that was a self-inflicted wound. I just don't see how this makes sense. We have programs that bring investment into America that create jobs. And we're basically saying we're just going to give all that away and just stroke a check and you get to come in. That's going to piss MAGA off.
A MAGA tripwire. Wow. That's the headline right there. I want to go to Capitol Hill next because there's a lot of stuff happening up there. But let's just start, Dan. You've got a little insight into what Democrats are thinking right now, just to sort of set the stage a little bit. There's going to be that vote, 2 votes in the Senate today. They're both show votes. Democratic proposal to extend Obamacare subsidies for 3 years. The Republican proposal that it doesn't even touch the subsidies. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like it's a lot of different forms, et cetera. Health savings accounts and that sort of thing. So the question is, what happens next? Dan, what are you hearing?
So yesterday there was a flurry of, 2 different Republican bills that they started the discharge petition on because just Johnson, House Republicans had a meeting yesterday. They put 10 different ideas in front of the conference. People came out of that just immensely frustrated because, to state the obvious, there was no consensus. So 2 different discharge petitions have started, and one of them is for basically a clean 1-year extension. Right. And I talked to a senior Democrat last night, and I can confirm what Jake Sherman has said this morning. There is a whip meeting going on right now in the House Democratic Caucus. They are very seriously thinking about jumping on this. There are 5 Republicans who have signed on to the discharge petition. If every Dem got on, that would be enough. I think more Republicans would end up voting for it. Democrats are extraordinarily confident on this issue. one of the things that some people say is like, why are we going to go out and potentially jump on this discharge and save Republican bacon? Let some of these moderates, get a win. Republicans get a win on this issue. There is the party has tested this, and even Democrats rescuing the issue, there's no political fallout for them or benefit really for the Republicans. Republicans are so divided on this issue and in such bad shape. So it is very possible that they're going to jump on this and that this discharge petition could come through. And now Johnson would face a huge issue, and so would Trump. And Sean, I want to know your opinion on this. Does Johnson dare shut the House down and send him home? Because this would be completely in violation, that the Hassett rule would collapse. Obviously, it's a discharge petition. It's on.
Which, by the way, is the majority of the majority.
Right. The Senate now potentially gets rolled because you have something that's come out of the House. It's clean. It's 1 year. Does Trump turn on this? Does he stay silent? What happens now? And I've been told that the DSCC, that, they've got similar data. What would the Senate do? I think we may face an interesting crossroads in the next 24 hours.
Well, could I just, before you jump in, Sean, just to mention, even if this does pass the House, the Senate doesn't have to do anything with it. But nope. Of course, everybody would be looking to the president, which gets to your question to Sean. Like, what would President Trump
do? You would need more Republicans in the Senate than you do in the House to get this through. Because you only need 5 to come out. And they technically, if every Democrat voted for it, you need, you would need
about a dozen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So a few things. One, we all had this little text chain yesterday in the middle of the day, and I'm watching. This tells you like how I spend my days. I'm watching the House floor, the House cloakroom, and they kept that vote open. It was 209, 216. The Republicans
on the National Defense,
on the NDA, the National Defense Authorization Act, which should not be a tough vote, to be honest with you, in a normal world. But the Democrats held firm, which I was actually shocked that not one Democrat voted for the National Defense Authorization Act. I got to be honest. I was a little that shows you how far we've come.
Yeah.
When
it was the rule. It was the rule.
Right. But that's
still,
that's actually an easier vote to swallow if you're a Democrat.
I disagree on that, because just typically on rules, you don't get minority help. You are expected as the majority stand it up. And then after it passes, this is very
not on the NDA, right? On 99,
not on the NDA.
On the NDAA, this is normally, this thing passes 350 to 42 or something. Okay. That's why I'm saying, like, the opposition to letting it move forward, to me was a little, but the reason I bring it up is kind of the dynamic here, which is if that vote is tough for you, and it took getting Marco Rubio on the phone to assuage a couple of folks, then when it comes to this, I think Dan's right. I got to be honest with you. Like Brian Fitzpatrick, if I were Hakeem Jeffries, I would come out and say, you know what? We are in the minority, This is the smart move. It would be a political power move on his play. Put Johnson in a really tight spot. I think you might actually pull a handful of Republicans on board on this. But the thing that's interesting to me is this is another area where Republicans, and I've said this all along, I get it. We got handed a hot potato. We didn't vote for Obamacare. We didn't vote for the subsidies. And now, but we're in charge. Okay. It sucks. But that's, if you want to be in charge, this is what you have to do. Republicans need to go out and sell this. I had Ron Johnson on my show yesterday, and I could have gone for like Joe Rogan style for like 4 hours. Like we need to deal with this. And the idea of just putting a Band-Aid on it and saying, like, let's just do the subsidies, maybe what we ultimately have to do. But the idea that we've pissed away all this time, and I don't mean just the last 25 days since we voted to reopen the government, but that we have sat around for the last 10 years and don't have a more comprehensive approach to healthcare is pathetic. It's actually sad. And the thing is that there are some areas of agreement on the right. And to be honest with you, even if we wanted to cop out, there are some ways to address the current issues. If you look at the current pool, what we're really talking about is not people who have insurance through their employer, not people who work for state or local or federal government, but about 24 million people who are on the exchange, right? 6 million of which we can claim, at least through data, that have never filed a claim, i.e. there's probably a good chunk of them that aren't real people. And then of the people that are between 400 and 700% of the poverty line, which is what this is. That's about 1.6 million. So we could actually tackle this much more smartly than just being like, hey, let's just vote yes and kick the can down the road. There's a lack of leadership that needs to be addressed.
To just sort of, before we go to our next topic, sort of pull this all back and underscore the chaos that is happening in the House right now. You had, like Sean was talking about, the need to get Marco Rubio on the phone to get conservatives to vote for a rule to bring this bill up. He now faces 4 live discharge petitions to circumvent his own speakership authority and bring things to the floor. I've covered the Hill for almost a decade. This doesn't happen. Like, it just doesn't. It rarely happens, okay? And there are 4 right now that could potentially move. There's a host of retirements that people are expecting. And this obviously comes as Marjorie Taylor Greene, after she quit, and Stefanik came out and took shots at the speaker. So, I mean, it's Johnson. He needs a Christmas break.
I think
he needs a Christmas break.
Johnson is really kind of, on to some extent, speaker in name only, in that he is relying on Trump's good graces. I mean, even go back to the big, beautiful bill and everything. It was when Trump and the White House leaned in and said, hey, we're going to do X, we're going to do Y. When Trump is disinterested or unwilling to engage, a la healthcare right now, or all of these kind of, mundane issues, or not presidential level issues, let's say, to some extent, Johnson is helpless. I mean, he just cannot, because everyone knows that he's the beggar, right? The majority is so tiny. And so, I mean, he's so getting whipped right now all over the place by his own party. You guys both think he survives through November?
I think you have to watch what happens, with the midterm elections.
Trump does,
the president does. Does the president say? Mm-hmm.
The president needs, here's the deal. If there's a shellacking, I mean, he gets through November. I don't think there's any question about that. Yeah. The White House needs stability to shepherd this. And also, like, look at McCarthy got dethroned and then quit. And if they had to worry about that, I mean, and I think Johnson is enough of would not do that, but you can't risk that stuff. So the president and the White House, considering, to your point, Johnson's been a loyal team player. The president, I think, appreciates how he's handled himself. But if we were to lose seats in November to the point where we lost it, I don't know that he becomes minority leader.
It's rare that a speaker, after losing, Nancy Pelosi is an exception here.
Yeah, she's an exception.
For Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, Hassert hung around for a little bit and then retired, but he also had some very personal problems.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, that's another topic we will come back to another day. What happens in the leadership, suites if Republicans lose the majority. But let's move on and talk about sort of the MAGA online apparatus sort of eating each other alive. I just want to start first with Erica Kirk pushing on all these conspiracy theories on the internet for a while. Turning Points USA is going to be having this summit next week. I don't know if you call it a summit, December 15th, where they're going to be actually going live to rebut a lot of these conspiracy theories that have been, spread online by Candace Owens, the MAGA influencer. And she did an interview yesterday where she talked, a couple of interviews actually, where she talked about how much this has hurt. She lost her husband, and now she and her staff, the staff at Turning Points USA, are having to deal with these outrageous, bananas, totally bonkers conspiracy theories that I don't even want to repeat because I don't even want to give them oxygen. But Sean, just start there. You would think, I know a lot of MAGA influencers, they have very personal relationships with a lot of people in power and a lot of with each other as well. Has there been an attempt to call Candace Owens and be like, shut the hell up? What are you doing?
Good luck with that.
That is true. Good luck with that. And maybe that's the point, right?
But here's the thing that I would just say. So first of all, the America Fest is a annual December Turning Point USA gathering, right? So this is always going to happen, whether, this is something that's gone on for years in Arizona. It's been part of their sort of routine. I I was very saddened that Erica had to address this yesterday. The idea that we all saw it happen very publicly, and that knowing how much Charlie was beloved by so many people, but especially by Erica and that team, that they're somehow covering up or complicit, or I to be honest with you, I don't really give a lot of it the time of day because I'm just appalled by a lot of it. But the idea that she has to go out there, and I really was moved by her comments yesterday with Harris Faulkner on Fox, which was, it's not just her. She's got to have, her kids are going to grow up reading a bunch of this crap.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate. And that's what sometimes people don't get, is when you're doing some of the crap that happens now online, it's not just personal for that individual, but it's their family, their kids, their kin forever. And so I will say that there is the one thing else that I, in some of this back and forth between different individuals, is that Donald Trump has always asserted, I am the leader of this movement. And the sniping that you're seeing is not about him or his personalities going after each other, saying some crazy stuff here and there, or some theories about things. And that at least makes me go, okay, this isn't about the Trump agenda, the America First agenda. This is different individuals going after each other. Not helpful, but at least it's not about the agenda writ large.
But the interesting thing though is, Sean, like we just talked about the House having all these challenges. Healthcare is an issue. We talked about we talked about affordability here now for a while. One of like your team's great assets in 24 was you had this entire kind of online army that day in, day out, as a rule, was always shooting at Harris and Biden and Democrats on culture issues, on the economic struggles. Our team, and I don't think we really have anything comparable as a team, but our team was fractured, right? You had Charlemagne the God and others kind of really questioning Harris on all sorts of issues. When you think of 2026 and you think of 2028, I mean, you talked about Rachel, somebody calling and asking, but like if you're JD Vance or Susie Wiles thinking about the midterms and you're sitting there, like, what Trump is the master at, like trying to get everybody back together. Like, how do you stop this infighting? Because if this continues, it's hard to win with a divided House.
Yeah, but that's why I was saying it's not divided over the issues, right? So it's not like Candace is saying, I don't want tariffs, and
but they're not talking tariffs. They're talking this stuff. I mean, that's the problem.
But I guess that's the point, is that I'm not good, right?
Yeah.
But would you rather, it's not like they're disagreeing on the policy, so that, to your point, Dan, when it comes time to say, all right, guys, cut the ridiculous stuff out. We got to get back to being a family because the agenda is at stake. My hope is that that's when it gets back on track, which is put your stupid differences aside between this and your conspiracy theories on that. We need to focus on the Trump agenda. I hope and believe that gets us back on track. That's what unites us. But right now, it's not helpful. I will admit that. But it's also not. Look, this is also like total, like ultra inside, meaning the average person right now, we talk about things all the time, like what's resonating outside of the MAGA faithful. I don't think the average person that is sitting down at dinner tonight or picking up their kids is talking about the feud between Candace and
But here's where I disagree, because they all have millions of followers, whether on their podcasts, on social media, or whatever. And what the listeners or readers or viewers or whatever are hearing are attacks on other people, right? They're not hearing Democrats on the boats or, the Bidenomics or like whatever. They're just hearing these inner fights. And you talked yesterday about Republican motivation. Like, part of it too is, who is it that can try to pull them together? Like, is it Don Jr.? And I mean, it would have been Charlie Kirk would have been one of those people. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they're having a retreat, doing yoga together, but is it Susie and Vance and Don Jr. and others that at some point try to corral this group to your point, saying, all right, guys, you feuded for the spring, but we got to get you banging drums to get us up and them down?
Look, I mean, I think that's what there's a little bit of, okay, you guys want to have your discussion, right? there's a time for that. And like anything else, there's a time to sit down at the dinner table and like, now we got to eat. So you want to go to the living room and talk for a while. That's fine. I think that, you know, to your point, beyond the president, the biggest voices right now that can say, guys, snap out of it. Let's go. Let's stay focused. And, you know, again, if this was happening in July of next year, a couple months out, and we need to be organizing, door knocking, you know, kind of getting that GOTV effort up for early vote, I'd be concerned. You want to go have that conversation now, the sort of the reminiscent of Occupy Wall Street and all that. Great. Get it out of your system. Go do it now. I on a personal level, I got to say from a Kirk family and the TPUSA family, like, this is ridiculous that they're going through this. But I don't want it to go on ever. I mean, my view is stop it. But I also think that, like, if it's going to have to happen, and to your point, Rachel, no one's can call. I mean, Candace is not someone that I don't think listens to anybody. So I don't think she cares what, you know, anybody.
She's not, I mean, Laura Loomer, her power has just grown, and she's taken shots all inside the tent right now, you know, going after other Republicans.
Question is, at what point does Trump turn on people?
But I just want last point on this, and we got to move on because we do want to hit Dems and we're already running a little behind, but you can also see how, instead of focusing on the team, Sean, as you're talking about, that some Republicans want, there are Republicans who see people with these big followings and use them in a way to go after, you know, rivals inside, right? Other Republicans. People go after other people in the administration. And so,
hello, Ted Cruz.
I feel like I open my Twitter. I feel like I open my X. And I am constantly, the first things I see are, you know, MAGA influencers taking shots at each other all the time. Like, it's,
you got to subscribe to more people.
Crazy.
You subscribe.
Well, I was going to say, thank you, Elon, changed the way my Twitter feed works. Not necessarily for the better.
Welcome to blue sky.
But anyway, we got to move on. A couple top headlines on Democrats. Dan, I know you want to weigh in on this.
Yes, let's go.
So Buzzy, Kamala Harris's book tour is getting extended, which, again, we talked about her yesterday, and, you know, all the questions we have about a viable 2028 run. But she is selling books, and people are showing up. And yet, there's the New York Post story about how Rachael Bade went on a podcast and said she regrets not pressing Harris harder in her interview. Bade was complaining at our table, the podcast, that she felt like Harris wasn't real in her recent interview. Said she's being too careful, and that she wished she would have just been like, stop. I've read the book. I've seen you off camera. Like, let's just be real. Let's put it on the table. This gets to the authenticity problem Kamala Harris has, Dan.
Well, I think so. The reason that I think this topic is worth bringing up is, so she did announce the extension of this book tour. And one of the things is going to be, when we talk about next year, is what Democrats are sought after as surrogates, both to raise money in private homes and online, and then to campaign. Because when somebody comes to town for you of prominence, it generates buzz. Local media cares about it. You get attention. You get to drive a message kind of with a validator that presumably the public, you know, thinks well of. Kamala Harris has not been in demand the last year. I mean, at all. When we talked about New Jersey and we talked about Virginia, you had Rahm Emanuel, you had, you know, Pete Buttigieg, like even AOC did some fundraisers for people kind of out of sight a little bit. But when Harris starts showing up, one of the things is going to be who will be seen with her. Yeah. And then this thing about she is so robotic when she's in front of the camera. Everyone makes fun of the word salads. But I mean, it should not be lost that even Rachael Bade was somewhat, you know, kind of frustrated with her, because if you're Harris and you're going to run for a third time, you got to convince people that something is different, whether it be in your substance or in your style. I've lost twice, right? First time pretty spectacularly. This is what I've learned, and this is how I'm different. Trump in 24, to his credit, was subtly different than Trump in 20 in terms of he knew that suburban women had been a problem. He knew there were things that he had to do to kind of, you know, make that little gap up. I'll be really curious to see if Harris has any of that self-awareness, or if she's like, I'm going to do the same thing and be the same person the third time, and it will be the charm.
You go back to Dole 96. Dole went on, it was either Letterman or Leno afterwards, and everyone goes, "Where's that Bob Dole?" Mitt Romney loses in 2012, goes out. There's a Netflix, I think it was Netflix documentary on him. Sort of was, everyone's like, "Where was that Mitt Romney?" Nobody has ever said that about Kamala Harris, though. There's a difference. Like I've been, when he, you know, and I do think there's a little bit of when he has a very personable, gregarious way about him that's charming. And Donald Trump is actually the same guy in public that he is in private. But the thing about Harris is I've never heard anyone say that she's any different. She is inauthentic. She's a horrible, horrible candidate. You cannot fix this. This is not something where someone goes like, "Hey, just wear brighter colors." Like, this isn't Al Gore being groomed to wear earth tones. This is an inherently personal thing. She's not good. And I don't know what anyone thinks you can do to change it. It's just not there.
You know, we had also on the agenda to talk about this story about sniping at the Democratic Campaign Committee. I actually think I want to save this for tomorrow because I think it's a good conversation. And Dan, I want more than 30 seconds out of you on this. But did you have final comments on the Harris thing?
Well, no, I mean, I do want to flag though, and I guess I'll tease it. The move by Haley Stevens in Michigan running for the Senate House member, to introduce the impeachment of RFK. I've talked all year. That Senate race is so fascinating, the primary. You don't do that if you're feeling good.
Yeah, we'll talk more Dem infighting and primaries tomorrow. Once again, I forgot to do this at the top of the show. Katie, behind the scenes, remind me next time. I'm writing it down. We need to drive folks to the dchuddle.com, sign up to join our Substack. And then also we just have this new, we just launched this new YouTube page, the DC Huddle. Go there, subscribe. Again, free.
At the DC Huddle?
Yep. At DC Huddle. The DC Huddle. Don't forget the. There you go. There it is. There it is. But that's all we have time for today. We actually went much longer than I expected, but
it's because it's a great conversation.
Yes, we like each other so much. There you go.
Now I need to go after I got up this early, I gotta go take a nap already.
Welcome to Dan's life.
Dan, how does this work? Do I take a 2:00 siesta?
Well, now you eat lunch because it's at the halfway point. Yep.
9:30 lunch.
That's right. Yep, you're ready to go.
All right, guys. We will see you all tomorrow at 8:30.
Yeah, bring your Navy gear. We're getting ready for the game.